In June 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus purchased their dream home, a stately 6-bedroom, 4-bath Dutch colonial at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey, for $1.3 million. Built in 1905, the house was part of a quiet, affluent neighborhood, and the couple planned to renovate it before moving in with their 3 young children. The sale closed smoothly, and the Broadduses took ownership on June 2, 2014. But just days later, before they could even settle in, they received the first chilling letter from an anonymous sender who called themselves The Watcher. The message was filled with ominous warnings about the house's history and a vow to monitor the family. Shaken, the Broadduses delayed their move-in and contacted police, unknowingly stepping into one of the most infamous real estate horror stories of the decade. Just days after closing on the house, Derek and Maria Broaddus received a handwritten letter in the mail, postmarked July 2014. The envelope was addressed simply to the new owner of 657 Boulevard, and inside was a message that would unravel their sense of security. The letter began with a disturbingly polite greeting. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. But the tone quickly shifted into something far more sinister. The writer, who signed as The Watcher, claimed a generational connection to the house. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. The most chilling lines followed. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. The Broadduses were stunned. They had not yet moved in, and yet someone was already fixated on them, and worse, their children. The letter contained no direct threats of violence, but the obsessive tone and the mention of young blood left them deeply unsettled. They immediately contacted the Westfield Police Department, who opened an investigation. Detectives examined the letter for fingerprints and DNA, but no matches were found. The handwriting was analyzed, but without a suspect, it led nowhere. This was only the beginning. More letters would follow, each more unnerving than the last. A plain envelope arrived at 657 Boulevard just days after the closing, addressed in neat handwriting to the new owner. Inside lay a single page of lined notebook paper, its message beginning with deceptively warm greetings before spiraling into something far more disturbing. The writer identified themselves only as The Watcher. The letter opened with chilling hospitality. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. This cordial facade quickly gave way to ominous declarations about the property's hold over its inhabitants. How did you end up here? The writer demanded. Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within its walls? What followed was a claim of generational obsession. I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. The most unsettling passage came near the end. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? A line that would haunt the new owners, particularly as they had 3 young children. The letter's closing was signed simply The Watcher, leaving no return address or other identifying marks. The handwriting appeared deliberately controlled, not the scrawl of someone hastily jotting down thoughts, but the careful script of someone who had planned this communication. The paper itself was ordinary, the kind that might be found in any household, offering no forensic clues. When the Broadduses showed the letter to Westfield police, investigators noted its peculiar mix of formality and menace. The reference to young blood was particularly troubling, suggesting either a Gothic literary flourish or something more sinister. The mention of previous generations watching the house implied a long-standing fixation, though no records existed of any similar letters to prior owners. More letters follow, 2014 to 2017. The first letter was only the beginning. Over the next 3 years, the Broaddus family received a series of increasingly disturbing communications from the self-proclaimed watcher, each one deepening the mystery and their growing sense of unease. The letters arrived at irregular intervals, sometimes months apart, their timing seemingly random, yet always managing to shatter any temporary peace the family might have found. A second letter arrived in August 2014, just as the family was beginning security upgrades to the property. This one contained more direct references to the Broaddus children, asking pointedly, "Have the children found their rooms yet?" The writer boasted of their constant surveillance. "I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession." The language suggested an intimate knowledge of the family's movements, despite them never having moved into the house. November 2014 brought the third communication, more confrontational than the previous ones. "Why are you here? I will find out," it threatened, before making another chilling reference. "I asked the previous owners to bring me young blood." This marked the first time the watcher claimed to have contacted prior residents, though subsequent investigations would reveal no evidence that the Woods family had ever received similar letters. The correspondence took an even darker turn in 2015. One letter arrived addressed specifically to the Broaddus children, its contents so disturbing that the parents refused to disclose the exact wording to investigators. Around this time, the family noticed strange occurrences at the property: lights flickering in empty rooms, gates left open when they had been securely locked. Whether these were the work of the watcher or simply the product of heightened paranoia was impossible to determine. By 2016, the letters began referencing the family's attempts to sell the house. "You don't want to leave," one warned. "The house is happy with you." Another bizarre note arrived with a newspaper clipping about the property, certain words carefully circled to form a cryptic message. The psychological toll became unbearable. The Broadduses installed a comprehensive security system, hired private investigators, and consulted forensic experts, but the watcher's identity remained frustratingly out of reach. The final known letter came in early 2017, its tone different from the others, less grandiose, more matter-of-fact. It simply stated, "I'm still watching," before concluding with what might have been a signature or perhaps just a random series of numbers. After this, the letters stopped as abruptly as they had begun, leaving behind only questions and a family forever changed by their encounter with the unknown. The initial letter was merely the opening act in a psychological siege that would span years. Like clockwork, new missives arrived at 657 Boulevard, each more unnerving than the last. The correspondence followed no predictable schedule, sometimes arriving in quick succession, other times after agonizing months of silence that allowed the family to briefly hope the nightmare might be over. August 2014 brought a second communiqué that crossed disturbing new boundaries. The watcher now spoke of the Broaddus children with unsettling familiarity, asking pointed questions about which bedrooms they would occupy. The writer boasted of conducting constant surveillance of the property, claiming to monitor comings and goings at all hours. Most chilling was the declaration, "The house has accepted you for now." As autumn approached, a third letter arrived with escalating rhetoric. The watcher now claimed the house itself was communicating with them, whispering its secrets in the dead of night. References to the home's hunger and need for young blood became more explicit. The writer ominously warned that previous owners had failed to satisfy these demands, hinting at consequences the Broaddus family might face. The winter months saw the communications take a darker turn. One envelope contained nothing but a child's drawing of the house, with shadowy figures in the windows. Another included a list of dates, some in the past, others in the future, with no explanation beyond the words, "I remember. I wait." The family's private investigator noted how the handwriting seemed to vary slightly between letters, as if the watcher was consciously altering it, or perhaps experiencing different emotional states when writing. By 2015, the letters began referencing specific family activities, a birthday party they'd considered hosting, a planned renovation to the backyard. The watcher seemed to know details that hadn't been shared publicly. One particularly disturbing note arrived the day after the family installed security cameras, reading simply, "I see your new eyes. They cannot see me." The final letters in 2016 to 2017 took on an almost resigned tone, as if the watcher knew their game might be ending. "You'll never understand," one stated, while another cryptically promised, "The house will have its due." Then, as mysteriously as they began, the letters stopped, leaving behind only questions, fear, and a family forever haunted by their unseen tormentor. The Westfield Police Department opened a formal investigation immediately after receiving the first watcher letter in July 2014. Detectives initially treated the case as a potential harassment matter, but the escalating nature of the correspondence soon elevated it to a top priority. Forensic analysts carefully examined each letter for fingerprints, DNA evidence, and trace materials, but the sender had been meticulous. Every document came back clean, bearing only the Broaddus family's fingerprints from handling. Investigators traced the letters' origins through postmarks, discovering they had all been mailed from different locations within a 20-mile radius of Westfield. This suggested the watcher was deliberately varying drop points to avoid detection. Handwriting analysis proved inconclusive, with experts noting the script showed signs of being deliberately altered, possibly through the use of different writing instruments or the adoption of varying writing styles. The police interviewed all immediate neighbors and previous homeowners. The Woods family, who had owned 657 Boulevard for 23 years prior to the sale, insisted they had never received any strange letters or noticed suspicious activity. Detectives found no evidence contradicting their statements. Background checks on neighborhood residents revealed no obvious suspects with a history of stalking or harassment offenses. In 2015, the Broadduses hired former FBI investigators and private security experts. Their team conducted surveillance of the property, installed hidden cameras, and even staged controlled deliveries in hopes of catching the watcher in the act. These efforts yielded nothing but false alarms, a shadow here, a flicker of movement there, but no concrete evidence. Forensic linguists analyzed the letters' phrasing and vocabulary, identifying several distinctive patterns, but unable to match them to any known individuals. The case took a strange turn when investigators discovered that several phrases in the letters bore similarity to dialogue from popular television shows about haunted houses. This led to speculation that the watcher might be constructing their persona from fictional sources rather than expressing genuine generational knowledge of the property. By late 2016, with no physical evidence and no witnesses, the active investigation wound down. The Westfield Police Department maintained an open file, but had exhausted all viable leads, leaving the mystery of the watcher's identity unsolved. Frustrated by the lack of progress in the investigation and unable to sell the house due to its notorious reputation, the Broaddus family took legal action in June 2017. They filed a lawsuit against the previous owners, John and Andrea Woods, alleging fraud and failure to disclose the home's disturbing history. The complaint claimed the Woods family had received similar letters from the watcher before selling the property, but deliberately concealed this information during the sale. The Woods family vehemently denied the allegations, testifying under oath that they had never received any threatening letters during their 23 years of ownership. Their attorneys argued that if the watcher truly existed, he or she had only begun targeting the property after the Broaddusses purchased it. The defense pointed to the complete absence of any police reports or documented complaints from the Woods' decades in the home. As the case proceeded through New Jersey's Superior Court, it became a battle of credibility rather than evidence. The Broaddusses' legal team subpoenaed postal records and former neighbors, searching for any proof that the Woods might have known about the watcher. By 2019, the Broaddus family had reached a breaking point. After years of legal battles, sleepless nights, and mounting financial strain, they made the difficult decision to part with 657 Boulevard. The property, once their dream home, had become a prison of paranoia, a place they never moved into yet couldn't escape. The house languished on the market, its infamy scaring off most buyers. Real estate agents whispered about the Watcher House, and prospective owners balked at the unsettling history. The Broaddusses eventually accepted a harsh reality. They would have to sell at a staggering loss. In December 2019, the property finally changed hands for less than what they had paid. The new buyers, whose identities remain private, were reportedly undeterred by the home's dark lore. In 2021, the new owners took drastic action. They demolished the original 1905 Dutch colonial, erasing the physical structure that had inspired so much fear. In its place, they constructed a modern, custom-built home, a symbolic fresh start for the infamous address. The demolition felt like an exorcism of sorts, as if destroying the house might finally silence the Watcher's legacy. Yet, questions linger. Did the Watcher truly vanish, or did they simply lose interest? Was the tormentor a neighbor, a prankster, or something more sinister? The new residents have remained silent, offering no clues as to whether the letters ever resumed. For now, 657 Boulevard stands as a quiet suburban residence, its dark chapter seemingly closed. But in a town like Westfield, where secrets hide behind manicured lawns, some wonder if the Watcher is still out there, waiting, watching. The Broaddus family, though free of the house, will likely never be free of the question: who was the Watcher? The answer may be lost to time, leaving only the letters and the fear they bred as evidence of a mystery that may never be solved. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.